Hello and welcome to the live series podcast where I bring to you some of the best technology leaders across Europe who are prepared to give up their time to share their expertise, stories and ideas in a way to bring the tech community together and inspire the next generation of software engineering professionals. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Divya Bokaria, who's the head of data and analytics at Zattoo. Now, Zattoo are one of the most exciting tech businesses in Berlin, specializing in the TV and video streaming space, and they've grown to over 150 people. Now, Divya has been involved in the data and software engineering space now for the last 10 years, and I'm really excited to hear about her ideas and her vision around data engineering and the challenges that come with it. So Divya, it's great to have you on the podcast. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for inviting me.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. So as always, I always ask by just asking you to introduce yourself to the listeners so that they get a picture as to who you are, how your background is, and how you got into data and analytics and developed into the role that you're in now.
Mm-hmm. Let me think. Short version, long version. We'll try the short version, which is also long, maybe. So, yeah, I come from India, and I did an MBA and was working in financial risk consulting in India when I decided to move to Germany 7 years ago. Because my then boyfriend, now husband, was studying here, and we wanted to explore going to a new country. And when I came in here, I thought people would be wanting me in banks to do financial consulting, but I did not realize there's something called a language barrier in finance, and it did not work out so easily. And what I did is I took up an internship for strategy at an e-commerce company, and I really liked it. And I was good with numbers. So my boss then said, hey, we are trying to internalize the data and analytics here, or BI team here. Would you be up for taking that up? And I think I did not know terms like data warehouse then, most probably. So I'm not sure, but yeah, looking back, at least I'm sure that there were some terms which I had to look up, but he told me this is what we want you to do. But I just took it up, and it was, I think, serendipity, because I just fell in love. So I also have a background in software engineering, which I did not like because I want to know the why of things also, and just not how to do it. Okay. And here was a place where I could get connected with all kinds of business processes. It was geeky, and I just think I found my place, and I just then grew from there in this space.
Fantastic. So that's a pretty cool way of getting into it, because you were kind of thrown into it, I suppose, and guided. It's not like you'd maybe set out as that's the career path that you wanted to do. You kind of stumbled on it, and then, like you say, you fell in love with it.
Yeah. So I mean, I am a data person, so I do believe in taking calculated risk and backing things up with data, but some things in life do happen with serendipity also, like just by chance.
Yeah. Perfect. So what's your current role at the moment over at Zattoo, and what's your responsibilities there?
Yeah, so I lead the data and analytics team here, which is composed of data engineers, both BI analysts and product analysts, plus data scientists. So it's basically the entire range of data responsibilities that you can have. And it's super cool because this is the first time that I am in a place where I have all the three functions together, and I love to work with all these three functions together. And Zattoo is a TV streaming industry, so you do have a lot of big data, and that's very exciting because the amount of data that you have about the users, about our products, is massive. And to just get into that and to bring insights out of this kind of data is like super interesting to. Yeah. And yeah, that's what. And I would say what my role exactly is basically taking care of them, all the three functions, making sure we have all the all the data processes are running properly. We are doing reporting, analyzing the data well, and we are doing the machine learning functions also well. But I feel that, like, if I have to give you an overarching statement of what my role is, it's basically getting better at database decision making in the company. So establishing the culture more and more, having more processes around it and ingraining it in the company.
Perfect. I'd like to dive into, you know, just some of your ideas and your visions, I suppose, around what data engineering is, and what data kind of leadership is. So what would you say data leadership is for you?
Mm-hmm. So for me, it's really, I've worked in not massive companies, but less than 1,000 people companies since I came into data, but always in the technology space. And one good thing in this space is that you have a lot of data, but you do not necessarily, with the size of the companies, are always using the full power of the people to bring insights out. So a lot of the time we are stuck in the space where we are like, we can take in this data also, we can take in that data also, but we're not thinking about which one is relevant, which can drive decisions, which one is irrelevant to tackle. And that's where I think my passion lies. I want to see more data-driven decisions. I want to see data driving strategy of the company all the time. And that's what I strive for in wherever I am working and whatever teams I'm leading, that we get more value out of the data that we have.
Fantastic. You joined Zattoo, didn't you, just 10 months ago, pretty much when the pandemic hit. So how's that been for you?
Interesting, I would say. Zattoo as a company actually did pretty well for handling the whole pandemic, in the sense that we were already set up for remote work.
Right.
There are at least 4 locations that we work out of so Zurich, Berlin, Hamburg, US. These are places where we have people working from. And then there was also this there is this policy that at least once a week most people are working from home. So this means that our tools to adapt our meetings to for having people joining in from different locations or not having there was already in place. So this stuff kind of works seamlessly, and this was also one of the attractions that I saw. Okay, you could also work from home once or twice. That's cool. But for me, as a new person in the company, what's really important is to understand the undercurrents of the company. So I need to understand how this works, how the people work with each other, the departments and everything. And that was the challenging part, being new, because I could not meet these people. I had to do all that remotely, and like, I think we are all not used to doing this stuff remotely to have a casual conversation. Now, yes, 10 months in the pandemic, yes, we are all doing it, getting better at that. But at that time, to just get introduced to someone and have a casual conversation on a video was like kind of very, very intimidating, stupid. I don't know. So it took me time to bond with the team, to get to know the company culture a little bit more than usual. But I think Zattoo is doing an awesome job. It was very, very early that they decided that everyone can work from home till the end of the year, and then extending it and doing the right communications and being very practical about the whole thing.
Cool. Sounds like you adapted really well, which is really good. I know that one of the things that you wanted to touch upon was you know, the challenges of being a woman in data leadership. What would you say are kind of the biggest challenges for you in data leadership, being a woman?
Yeah, so I would I think normally data is a function where you have lesser women. So being in a place where you're leading teams which have less women is anyways harder. But I think that also goes for any kind of engineering roles, I would say. What is, I think, especially challenging about data is a support function, and the kind of things that I want to drive is to get more value out of data. And that's where you have to actually make sure you're present in rooms where sometimes you're not supposed to be present, because data is looked at, okay, someone crunching numbers, but not someone who's driving the strategy, or not as being a support function. And I think that can be harder being a woman because of kind of sometimes biases on both the sides, where you're trying to be aggressive on data needs to drive value and being a woman. But that's something that I know about, and it helps me to know that I am working with that in mind.
Yeah.
So, and one other thing that I feel I would love to do better at is basically having more women in my team. So having the right pipelines, having just more people in data. I feel we are like, I think I'm going to quote another women leader that I know, who once said to me that women are so structured and organized that they're naturally good at data.
Yeah.
So we're all naturally good at data, so we should be taking up more data roles. And I don't see that happening yet, but I would say that it should be way more natural than maybe more engineering roles. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that it would change, especially because data is also pretty sexy in today's days.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What can we do? Because I know this is a topic that I've touched upon a couple of times. If you see me on LinkedIn, you'll see that I post about diversity, inclusion, and bringing more women into tech. Where's the problem? You know, ultimately, and how do we get it better to the point where there's more tech leaders who are women? Because you know, I'm working on a VP of engineering role at the moment, and probably only 5% of the people that I'm contacting are women, you know. So if companies are just focusing on people who have been there and done it, and they've got the t-shirt, then we're really only fishing in a very, very small pond. We're not really driving people into those positions who have maybe not been there and done it. So how do we get more people, more women into tech and more women into leadership positions, do you think?
I think we have to. One thing that we do is in our hiring processes that the ideal person that we think of in the role is the person that we know who are already doing these jobs
Yeah.
in various places, which is mostly mostly men.
Yeah.
And this can change if you think of what do women bring in differently. And that's something that we have to think about in our hiring processes. What can we do differently? What is a different mindset good enough? One thing that I particularly do when I am hiring is I'm not always looking for knowing every tech tool that you can know. I'm looking more for the mindset.
Yeah.
And that's easier to find than if you have to check box all the tools, which is generally more common a hiring practice than not. So that's something I would say we all need to get into. And I don't know, there are two different kinds of thoughts on do we really need set quotas or not in roles. I think the phase that we are in right now, it will help. It will help a lot of companies. Why? Because otherwise you don't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And that's the one way to pay attention to it. I know there is a lot of backlash to it, as to then you hire inferior talent and all that, but I don't think that's the case. You would still want to make teams better, and it has never, I don't think it has, like, on average ever proved out to be the case.
No.
Wherever it has been tried. So it has always proved out to be better. So I think we need to set that also, because if your criteria is a little different, to find women in those roles may take a little longer to fill, and then everyone has this time pressure of filling roles and all that, and then they go for the pool that is most obvious.
Yeah, I agree. So what are you, is that what you look for then when you're hiring? Is that the mindset, and how do you kind of how do you judge that ultimately? Is that done on rather than technical tests, it's more conversational?
Yeah, so to be honest, I'm also adapting. So
Yeah.
sometimes, so I'm actually looking back at my numbers and come back to what it is like. And at some point, I was doing okay with that, and currently I'm not. So, so I need to get better at this.
Yeah.
And my current process was more process driven, and that's where I evaluated it's not helping. But even in this process, although I'm actually looking more for the mindset, which is firstly curiosity, a love for data, being able to find structure in data. If it's data engineer that then I'm really looking for people who are able to deal with the four V's of data.
Yeah.
And if it's an analyst, then they need to understand the business that they're dealing with. They need to be able to transition this gap. If there are people who are are data scientists, then they need to be able to understand what problem are they solving, where can they apply what kind of data where can we apply what kind of algorithms. And what I feel is that technology changes. You of course need some hard skills for doing this, so data is very hard skills oriented, so you need some hard skills, but technology changes, and I can give that a back seat if I am able to see that curiosity, that drive, that ability to connect the dots.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree completely. There's a saying that I live and breathe by: you can teach technical skills, but you can't change personality and drive and their willingness. So if somebody wants to learn something and they've done it before, then they can do it again, can't they? But you can't change the personality ultimately.
Yeah, but one challenge that I see is that it's not so easy to make processes around these traits if you're not the only one hiring. You have to, of course, involve 7 other people in the hiring
Yeah,
process, and setting up a test to evaluate that, setting up something like a presentation to evaluate that, where you're evaluating more hard skills than soft skills, is just way easier. So I'm also struggling to figure out how to do this
yeah,
transition.
yeah. Cool. Okay, I've got a couple of ideas that I can talk to you about that offline. And I think that a lot of companies that find that problem, they hire based on technical skills, and most of the time people leave because of the soft skills and the that you've just talked about there. So there's ways in which around that can be done. But yeah, it's a struggle for a lot of businesses. I know. So what do you think is unique about data teams?
The current team that I'm leading, it's the diversity of skill sets. So it's really that how data engineers think versus what analysts think versus what data scientists think is completely different.
Yeah.
And we all learn so much from each other, so much. And you can data engineers also have to bridge the gap between engineering and themselves. Then analysts are talking to basically the whole business, all product, everyone. And then basically if we all connect with each other, we can really be the heart of the business. So that's something that I really love about data teams, of how diverse we are in our skill sets, how much we can learn with each other. And I learn from my teams every day.
Brilliant. I love that passion coming through. I really do.
Yeah.
What's the main challenge, I suppose, that you think is facing the data industry currently?
One thing is, of course, the challenge that I'm always trying to solve, which is getting to insights. So getting more value out of the data. So data is growing for everyone in the whole world, and we have found now technologies to process vast amount of data to put it all together. But insights are still very hard, because you need to be looking at the right place. You need to be connecting the people, and that's connecting a lot of different things outside, inside, to be able to finally gain some insights. And that's, I feel sometimes the focus is not right. We are focusing more on, we have more data, let's process more. And then we do not get to insights, and then it's a vicious cycle of then companies sometimes losing trust in the data teams. So that's definitely one thing that I feel we need a better grip of, maybe we need more. I also feel that it is about structure in some senses. Product and engineering has really evolved over the last decades, but also in the last few years. The roles like engineering managers did not even exist. You know?
Yeah.
So that's very, very recent. Or working in a team where you have designers, product managers, engineers thinking together, that's also very recent. Finding data teams in this setup or also in the business side where you're engaged in the right manner is something that we have not yet figured out. And I think it will evolve in the next few years, where we'll figure out how to set up the teams in smaller organizations, bigger organizations, where this just works better. What I feel is that currently we have not yet started thinking too much about the problem, or I do not see that much material around it, how to structure, how to embed, how not to embed. It's, I mean, both of course does exist, but how things like engineering managers came up, that's because a lot of people are thinking of this as a priority, and that needs to be set up for data teams to then get to the value.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, so just finally, I suppose, have you got any advice for somebody, you know, that looking to make a step into data leadership in the future? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I really feel that data really connects the company together and then brings value out of things to drive strategy. So if you're a person who is really keen to understand how the company works, how the undertones are set, that's when you should maybe look for data leadership, or you are strong in the areas of tech. So one of the tech parts, if you're really passionate about the changing technologies of data, of course, that's also a very good reason to take on data leadership. But a combination of both is where I guess the sweet spot is. And yeah, but one or the other would also do.
Perfect. All right, Divya, and everyone, I really appreciate you tuning in and listening to the episode. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. If you have, can you please give us a comment and let us know what you liked about it, and share it amongst your friends and colleagues. And I'll see you again on the next episode. But Divya, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.